How well do you know our beloved country? What are the things you knew from its past? Let us give you some of many interesting facts about the Philippine history.
Did you know there are 4 social classes during Spanish colonization? Filipinos can be divided according to these classes. First, the noble class or the Maginoo. The lakan or raja was paramount datu of a large town or bayan. The term hari or king was only used to refer foreign monarch and their viceroys were called halili. The tatu were Maginoo with personal followings, the luhan or barangay. His responsibilities included governing his people, leading them in war, and protecting them from the enemies. Second, the freeman class or the timawa. The timawa were non-slave who could attach themselves to the datu of their choice. They could use a portion of barangay land and rendered services and agricultural labor to the datu. Third, the warrior class or maharlika. The maharlika from the Sanskrit mahardika, meaning man of wealth, wisdom, or competence, were similar to the timawa, except they also rendered military services to the datu and paid for their own equipments and weapons. They also received a share of the spoils. And lastly, the indentured class or the alipin. There are 2 types of alipin, aliping namamahay and alipin sa gigilid. Aliping namamahay was a servant that lived in their own little house on the property of their master. And alipin sa gigilid was servant that lived around the house of their master. A gigilid of an aliping namamahay was called a busili, which means vile and compatible.
What is the effect of propaganda movement? They removed the tobacco monopoly in our country. The 40 days of forced labor became 15 days a year. The tribute was replaced to cedula tax. They were unsuccessful in convincing the Spaniards to grant out their reform. Why the propaganda movement failed? The propaganda movement did not succeed in this pursuit of reforms. The colonial government did not agree to any of its demands. Spain itself was undergoing a lot of internal problems all that time, which could explain why mother country failed to heed the Filipinos' petitions. What is the role of Rizal in propaganda movement? Rizal became a leader of the reformist movement called Propaganda, an unwavering campaign for political and social freedom, lobbying the peninsular government, using their connection with the liberal Spanish politician. He wrote unceasingly for the La Solidaridad mouthpiece of the propaganda, hoping, as did his fellow propagandists, that the pleas of the Filipino would be heard by the powers that be. He produced the 2 novels that he hoped would succeed in achieving his goal, where all other means had failed, but which ultimately led to his death.
Hello everyone, my name is Precious Odi and I'm here today to discuss with you some facts about the Philippine social condition during the Spanish colonization. Did you know that the local people under Spanish control are being converted to Roman Catholicism? Catholic ideals such as the sanctity of life and reverence for authority continue to shape beliefs in Filipino culture. Catholicism, as a branch of Christianity, believes in theology of God as the Holy Trinity, consisting of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. And this belief is still held on today. That is the reason why Philippines is also considered as one of the largest religious country in the world.
the campaign for the Philippine Reform, Knowledge, and Truth in Europe. Did you know? In the 19th century, the church dominated the curriculum of public education in the Philippines. Some affluent sons were sent to Europe to study, and from this remarkable group of abroad Filipino students arose what became known as the propaganda movement. One of them is Rizal, one of the movement's most talented figure who wrote two political novels, No Limitamare and El Filibusterismo, both of which had a major influence in the Philippines. As a result, this became tool for launching Filipino nationalism, awakening sleeping Filipino awareness while also preparing the ground for aspiring to independence.
Did you know the Spanish Muslims of Mindanao and Sulu called as Moros, which means that a Muslim inhabitant of the Philippines? This is because Spanish missed to control their homeland. Did you know Miguel Lopez de Legazpi, who established the first permanent Spanish settlement in Cebu in 1565? Did you know it was 1571 when Spanish city of Manila was founded, and by the end of the 16th century, most of the coastals and lowland areas from Luzon to northern Mindanao were under Spanish control.
Hi, good day. I'm Reina from BSTM 312. So let's talk about the campaign for the Philippine reforms, knowledge, and truth in Europe. Did you know that propaganda movement, reform, and national consciousness movement that arose among young Filipino expatriates in the late 19th century? And also, the most important event which possibly made that the revolution inevitable was that on February 17, 1872, when three Filipino secular priests, leaders in the movement for the secularization of the Philippines parishes, were executed publicly using by garrote of their supposed complicity in a military. Lastly, did you know that the events of 1872 practically disseminated the ranks of the early reformers? By the 1880s, a new breed of reform-seeking Filipinos began to emerge. These were Gregorio Santiago, Marcelo H. Del Pilar, Graciano Lopez Haina, Mariano Ponce, and also including Jose Rizal and others.
The Spaniards in Manila lived in the walled city of Intramuros. The governor administered ors friars, merchants, military officials, priests, and soldiers from Spain and some of their families all resident within the walls. Outside the walls was a polyglot community of Filipinos, Chinese, Japanese, and other foreigners. Those that profited the most from trade and other economic activities. Primarily, the Spanish elite wore fine silks, traveled around on elegant coaches, wore gold chains and gem-stamped rings, and were looked after by an army of servants. The Philippines was administered by the Viceroyalty of New Spain in present-day Mexico, but in many ways the Philippines was ruled by Catholic Church. Most Filipinos had little contact with the Spanish other than through the church. Their acceptance of Christianity acted.
Did you know that in the late 19th century, the propaganda movement was a reform and a national consciousness movement that originated among young Filipino expatriates? Despite their support for the Spanish colonial administration, the movement was brutally suppressed by the Spanish government, which murdered its most notable member, Jose Rizal. The Philippines did not have a public education system until the 1860s, and even then, the curriculum was dictated by the Roman Catholic Church. Due to the fact that Spanish friars made minimal attempt to instill a knowledge of Castilian in their students, only about a fifth of those who went to school could read or write Spanish, and even fewer could speak it.
You know, the execution of Rizal reformed the insurrection and the Philippines Revolution spread to Pangasinan, Zambales, and Ilocos. With the destruction of the United States battleship Maine on February 15, 1898 in the port of Havana, Cuba, and the subsequent outpouring of public rage, hostilities erupted between Spain and the United States. On May 19, exiled Aguinaldo returned to the Philippines and declared a resumption of the fight against Spain. Reform-minded Filipinos took refuge in Europe, where they carried on a literary campaign known as propaganda movement. Dr. Jose Rizal quickly rose to prominence as the leading propagandist. His novel Now Limitangere 1886, The Social Cancer 1912, exposed the corruption of Manila society and fueled the independence movement.